Very excited to talk to our next guest, a staple on this show. However, here in this new era, this is his debut, and a lot of people were very surprised. A lot of people thought he'd be a first-week guest, maybe even a second-week guest. There is a reason for that. First, let me say hello very quickly here to the head man over at Matchroom Boxing and all things Matchroom, the great Eddie Hearn. Hello, Eddie. How are you?
I'm very good, Ariel. I'm actually I'm in a cupboard at the moment in Delray Beach watching Liam Paro's spar.
Wow.
So thank you to the club for giving me this little cupboard here, and we're all feeling good, mate. Congrats on the new show.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. I hope this isn't a nuisance.
No, never a nuisance to talk to you.
What did you say before I interrupted you there?
Never a nuisance to talk to you?
Oh, yes. No, it was before that. You said something. I missed it. I'm sorry. Maybe it wasn't important.
Oh.
It was just, okay. Can I tell you why I'm so impressed with you, Eddie? For many reasons, I think very highly of you. But I think that you have changed and evolved. I think we are starting to see the maturation, dare I say, of Eddie Hearn. There was once a time where I think I would reach out to you, or anyone would reach out to you. You do an interview, you stop everything no matter where you are. I'm pretty sure I've spoken to you while on vacation. A week or so ago, reached out to you. Not only did it take a couple of days, you said on vacation with the family, can't do it. I wasn't offended. I was actually very proud of you. I was impressed. Are you now starting to pull it back a little bit?
Not pull back, just like realize that I just can't do every interview all the time. Like I hate letting people down. I hate, you guys have got a job to do. You're all reporting on our shows. You're giving us exposure as well. But at the same time, like it's not really me. I'm getting told by people within the business, like that you're doing too many interviews. Like you will not turn down an interview. So I don't want to. Like one of our keys has been we've always been accessible. So I never want to change that. But prioritization maybe improve a little bit, but always time for you, Ariel.
I appreciate that. No, and I'm not being facetious. I actually like to hear that because I know we talked in the past about balancing life and your kids and your family and all the travels and whatnot. So I thought that this was a very healthy response. We'll get into this weekend. A somewhat, I don't know if you could say, scrutinized performance by Boots Ennis. I know you react to it on Saturday. Now, some 48 hours, a little less, 40 or so hours later. Your impressions, this is your second fight with Boots under the Matchroom umbrella, second fight back home in Philly, a fight that was somewhat maligned because it maybe wasn't the opponent that everyone wanted to see him against. Your thoughts on how he looked out there?
Yeah, I thought it was a decent performance, definitely not spectacular. I mean, the issue with this IBF mandatory was it was a fight that, quite honestly, no one really wanted. We had to take the fight or lose our belt. And the first fight wasn't very good between the two. It wasn't very exciting. And actually, it was actually a pretty good fight on Saturday. But Boots seemed to be more focused on trying to make the fight exciting for the fans. And in turn, got hit probably a little bit more than he should do. I mean, he won virtually every round of the fight. But, not a performance that I wanted to scream and shout from the turnbuckle from. But definitely a performance that might make it a little bit easier to match him. And we've seen that over the last couple of days as well. So, yeah, I think a solid performance, but not spectacular. And he will have to be better. I know that this time around it was a bit tougher for him at 147. It's something we've got to look at. We want him to unify, but at the same time, if he has to move to 54, there's been talks with His Excellency, and of course, Oscar, you've heard him chime in about the Virgil Ortiz fight. I think that's a tremendous fight, and we'd love to make that fight. But it will either be a unification or a big fight at 154 next. And he will have to be better if he's fighting that kind of level of opposition.
So you make the interesting point that perhaps this will make it easier to match him up against future opponents, big name opponents, because I'm guessing the thought process is, they think he's not as good as he really is.
Basically, yeah.
So now they're going
no one's wanted to fight him. And what happens is he puts in an average performance and everyone gets a little bit brave. All of a sudden, Oscar's coming out. Virgil Ortiz will fight him. Stanionis will fight him. The other champions, Barrios, whoever will fight him. So that's a good thing. Obviously, you always want to look spectacular. But I think it will be easier to match him in this next fight. And the next fight will be a defining fight for his career. The problem is as well, a lot of these elite guys, when they fight down a level, I just don't think he's switched on. Like, he doesn't have the fear factor. Not excited about the fight. It's not an excuse. You always must get yourself up for the fight. But you'll see a much better Boots Ennis against elite opposition.
I recognize that this is a question that is probably better for him, but since you're speaking this candidly and openly about the performance, do you think he agrees with you? Do you think he would say it's an average performance?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone who knows their boxing could say it was anything but an average performance. I mean, it was solid. He won every round against his mandatory challenger. But when we're talking about this guy as a potential pound for pound top five, it wasn't that kind of performance, and that's okay because I think he went into that fight trying to make it exciting, taking chances, disregarding his defense, and I just think it was a little bit flat. So you'll see him against guys that he knows, he's going to have a problem with. You'll see him perform much better. But for now, hopefully, it will open the door to those bigger fights for people that have been reluctant to fight him in the past.
I understand what you're saying about maybe easier to match him up against big names, but in terms of selling him to the public, and you are the best at this, certainly in the sport of boxing. You need characters, you need to promote, you need to get people emotionally invested. I have not been impressed, if I'm being honest, with his ability to promote himself. When he was on the show a couple of weeks ago, he seemed very disinterested. He could have been going through a million different things. When he was at the post presser on Saturday, he wasn't giving you much to work with. You were doing the promoting, and I know that's your job, and I know he has said that's why he looks, he looks forward to working with you and likes working with you because you help take some of that pressure off of him. But isn't there a case to be made that you do have to sell yourself to the public, right? You do have to make yourself interesting to the world.
Always, I think everybody's different. I mean, Boots is actually quite a shy guy, to be honest with you. He's not overly comfortable in front of the camera. He likes to be in the gym and he likes to fight. Obviously, when you step up the levels and you start getting more and more media opportunities, you need to, take care of business in that respect as well. He's been fantastic for us. I mean, he's done piles of media, but sometimes, you're not going to get a fake Boots Ennis. Yeah, this it's not really his style, but you're right. Always you want a fighter that pushes himself. To be honest with you, I think we had 11,000 in there on Saturday. We had 14,000 for his last fight. I don't see other fighters pulling anywhere near those kind of numbers for the types of fights that he's been in, to be honest with you. So, in terms of a draw, particularly in Philly, a huge draw. But the next fight's going to be very important for him. And it's very likely that the next fight might be away from home, which might suit him as well after two fights at the Wells Fargo in just 4 or 5 months.
What's your take on the IBF these days? Why does it seem like the IBF are the ones ruining everyone's fun? This fight, I know AJ Dubois was one that's near and dear to your heart, but you could make the case that after a unification bout, it wasn't necessarily needed. Even what they were saying after Better Be a Bivol, we want to see that fight. Now they're talking about other mandatories. Why does it seem like the IBF is the one that are being the biggest stickler these days?
So just purely being honest, what the IBF do is they stick to their rules, which, to be honest, depends what side you're on. When you need them to stick to your rules, it's great. And when you don't, it's not. I feel like at times the IBF lack some common sense. Like sometimes Saturday was a good example. I have no problem with a mandatory challenger that has really earned the right to this shot, getting his shot. But for me, there's a lot of guys in those rankings. And, you look on Saturday, Chukhadzhian, Boots had already beaten him. Even Michael Effert from Germany, being called as the mandatory to Artur Beterbiev. These guys haven't necessarily been through a process where they've beaten elite guys to get their shot. And I feel like that's how it should be. So I can't always knock the IBF for sticking to their rules. Sometimes that's something that you don't always see in boxing. But at the same time, sometimes there's got to be a little bit of common sense to determine an opportunity to make bigger fights. So, like I said, kind of depends what side of the fence you're on, Ariel. If you've got the mandatory challenger, you want them to stick to their rules. And if you've got the big name and you've got to fight, a commercially worthless mandatory challenger, it's not the best position to be.
Next time we see Boots, 154 or 147, what do you reckon?
I think it's either a unification at 47 or a big fight at 54. My gut feeling is a lot of these guys will deplete themselves because they feel like they've got a physical edge once they step into the ring. So, you look at Boots and how he looks on fight week. he doesn't look overly strong. But in the ring, he might be 167 pounds. I don't know, 165 pounds, whatever he is. And there's kind of like a perception that that's a physical advantage for a fighter. I actually disagree. In most of my time in boxing, I've seen the stronger fighter be the guy that's made weight really well and hasn't rehydrated to huge, huge numbers. And I actually, when you see the size of, here with Liam Paro right now, and he stood next to Boots, he's one division bigger than him. And he was like, he's huge. I think he's a guy that's actually going to end up a middleweight. And I actually think he'd be surprised with the improvement in performance at 154. So I think that's a real option for us next. And again, with everything going on with Golden Boy and the 5v5 stuff, I think that would be a classic fight for the 5v5.
Do you think we ever see Boots versus Crawford at this point?
Yes.
Really? In the next how many years?
Because I think it's very likely that Boots will fight Virgil Ortiz next.
Wow.
If he beats Virgil Ortiz, which I believe he does, then I think His Excellency will push to make Boots against Crawford. You see, Terence Crawford really knows his boxing, and he knows how difficult that fight is with Boots. So he'll want financially rewarding. So when that fight becomes big enough, I actually think it will happen. But until then, he's going to have to put in better performances against better opposition to earn the right to have that big money fight against Terence Crawford.
You mentioned the 5v5 with Golden Boy, and recently Frank Warren said it doesn't look like the Queensberry Matchroom 5v5 is happening on February 22nd. Is there any chance we see it Matchroom Golden Boy February 22nd following Usyk Fury? That would be the next big Riyadh show. Is there any chance that happens this soon?
No, I mean, the February 22nd card is, being built at the moment, with myself and Queensberry and Gold Star, and it has some Golden Boy fighters on there. It has some Matchroom fighters on there. It has some Queensberry fighters on there. I'm not sure whether you see the 5v5 on that date, but, two of the proposed fights already are could be Jaron Ennis and Ortiz. And, of course, Shakur Stevenson against Zepeda, which is already agreed in principle anyway. So I don't know how the structure looks. I honestly feel like, this is something that we should have done quite a long time ago, to be honest with you, this 5v5 against Golden Boy. We're on the same platform. There's some tremendous matchups. And, Oscar does like to have a go at me most days. And I think it would be a lot of fun. So, part of the, the attraction of the 5v5 is the rivalry between promoters. And as far as our rivalry is concerned, it's pretty intense. And it's a matchup that I love the look of, to be honest with you. I think there's so many great fights.
Are we getting Dubois Parker on that card?
Yeah, I mean, that's one for Queensberry, the Dubois guy. But I think when you look at the options for Daniel Dubois, Joseph Parker is a guy that's fully earned that shot, and he's beaten Wilder, he's beaten Zhang. Everybody knows him in the UK market. Everybody knows him around the world. He's a tremendous heavyweight. And I think it's a brilliant fight if it gets made.
Going back to Saturday, Bam Rodriguez, incredible, blown away by the kid. He's unbelievable. I say kid, he's 24, so I'm not saying that to put him down, but it's really remarkable the power that he possesses. That was the type of performance, like you're better than the guy, you go out there and you just kind of dust him off. I had him on the show last week and I asked about the Inoue fight, and I know that's not on the horizon, but that to me feels like the biggest fight for both of them, given their weight class. He said 3 or so years away, which was a bit of a bummer because I was hoping he'd say maybe a year or two away. How likely do you think this is from happening in the next year or two?
I actually think the fight is closer than that. I mean, I look at Bam and I really feel like he's not going to be at super flyweight that long. He's 24 years of age. Like you said, you go in, that guy's a former world champion. He's just had a big win in Australia against Maloney. He's a very good fighter. And Bam destroyed him. Like, for me, I think you're looking at the pound for pound number one in the sport over the next few years. I think he's going to be there consistently. The only thing that's going to beat Bam, in my opinion, is going too far through the divisions. You see that quite a lot. And obviously the Inoue fight at Super Bantam is a huge step up against a fantastic pound for pound fighter. But what's going to happen is Bam wants to try and unify. You've got the Chocolatito fight out there. And where are the next challenges come from? The next challenge would be to move to bantamweight, try and win a third division world title, and then you're one division away from Naira Inoue. If he chooses to stay at 122 pounds, that fight becomes a real big reality. And, Inoue sits at number 3 in the pound for pound. Bam's 5. I see him and Inoue right there. I think you're going to end up over the next couple of years. That's going to be 1v2 pound for pound matchup. And it's just an unbelievable fight. But Bam is a special, special fighter. And I'm so pleased he's getting the recognition he deserves now, outside of the world of boxing as well. 24 years of age, unified, 2-division world champion, such a nice young man as well. And just a savage in that ring. Amazing performance.
I know things are going great with your friends at Queensberry and Frank Warren, but be honest, you must have laughed. And I know it just didn't happen last week. After all the shots about, you're not fighting on an app, dead zone, here they are, joining you. That must have been maybe a moral victory for you. I don't know. Maybe you send them a cheeky message as you know all this. I'm sure you knew well before, but that has to be some sort of validation, right?
It's a validation for our decision 5 years ago. I mean, look, when I made the gamble with DAZN, I felt that streaming was the future of live sports. I had, I really believed in the concept of a global app for boxing, the global home of boxing. And we got, it was so difficult. People were taking shots left, right, and centre. Streaming an app. What is this? No one, no one watches boxing on an app. And what is it called? DAZN. And and now you're seeing, obviously Queensberry, what a fantastic addition. But you're seeing every other promotional company in the world right now pitching to go on DAZN. And I'm talking every major promotional company in the world. So it has become the global home of boxing. And, it's not really a gloating on Frank or, particularly guys like Leonard Ellaby and those kind of guys. It just makes me go, yeah, you were right. You knew, you saw it. And, this isn't something that all of a sudden we're coming out and saying, yeah, we like this. This it's streaming. It's great. I saw it 5 years ago. I made the move. And, I'm really proud of what DAZN have done. Still lots of improvements to make, but they're dedicated to the sport. And you just don't see any major fights taking place outside of the platform. And obviously the Riyadh season collaboration has been brilliant for them. And long may it continue.
The next big one, of course, is Top Rank and ESPN, their deal up next summer. Would you be in favor of Top Rank joining DAZN?
Yeah, more the merrier. I mean, honestly, like the better the product, the better the offering to subscribers, the more subscribers DAZN are going to get. The more subscribers DAZN gets, the more profitable the business is. The more profitable the business is, the more opportunities there are for bigger shows, bigger budgets, more shows, and more subscribers, more exposure to our fighters. I mean, I hate, the thing, I don't want the platform all to myself. We want to bring great fights together. And that's why what I said earlier about the Golden Boy stuff, like it's crazy that hasn't been done before. There's so many matchups between the two companies and we're on the same platform. And now, we're making fights with Queensberry all the time. You're going to see more and more Matchroom Queensberry fights because there's no network politics now. We're all on the same platform. And the more people we can bring together on the platform, the more chance there are to see those inter-promotional company matchups, which is, great for the sport.
One of the biggest stories to watch, in my opinion, next year, as it pertains to this subject, is how involved Netflix will get into the world of combat sports. We know about their WWE deal, which starts January 1st, and we know about this Friday, their first foray, so to speak, with Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. We know about your documentary series that is coming up in 2025 with the team behind Drive to Survive, of course, Box to Box, and that's huge. That's great. We saw Top Rank do their own type of thing with ESPN Plus. What is your prediction? Do you think Netflix just gets into these sort of one-offs, or do you think there's a time where they do something similar to what they did with WWE, where it's, hey, we've now teamed up with X promotion and they're going to hold, X amount of events per year on the platform?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you never say never, but I don't see a regular boxing schedule appearing on the platform. I may be wrong as time progresses. I think these one-off big events on Netflix, with the ability to cross-promote with shoulder programming, I mean, you've seen that with the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson stuff. I think it really works. I mean, obviously they have a huge subscriber base, and I'm sure the fight this weekend will do fantastic numbers for them. And, for us, our documentary series that launches next year is going to be a behind-the-scenes look of boxing, like Drive to Survive, which has revolutionized those sports. So that gives us and our fighters and Matchroom a huge global audience to, to showcase what we're doing in boxing and sport around the world. So I think they're going to be very important. I'm sure this weekend's been challenging for them, and it will be until Sunday morning, but hopefully it can do good numbers. And again, I want more platforms in boxing. I want there to be more money come into the ecosystem of boxing. I want it to keep even our broadcaster on its toes. So, even them showing this fight, I think it's good for boxing, and the undercard, has got some good fights on it. Obviously, Katie Taylor against Serrano. So it's going to be a big audience and big eyeballs on the sport.
When I think of the rise of Matchroom boxing and Eddie Hearn, especially in the last 10 years, I think of two people that helped you get to where you are today in particular, and the ones who are closest to your heart, near and dear to your heart, AJ and Katie Taylor. I feel like you have a special bond with them. My understanding is you will be in Dallas for her fight.
Yeah.
But also, you were so involved in the promotion of the first fight against Serrano, and it's a bit of a backseat for you this time. Is that difficult for you? Do you?
No. I've never been one, honestly, like that. When this fight got offered to us, and Nikisa and MVP made a fantastic offer for Katie Taylor to fight Amanda Serrano. There was absolutely no way in a million years that I was going to let anybody deny her the opportunity to take this fight. Now, a little bit awkward with us because obviously we're exclusive and, she's one of our fighters to DAZN. And I had to go to DAZN and say, look, I know this isn't ideal and you've invested a lot of money into Katie Taylor, but I'm not going to allow her not to take this fight. This is the perfect fight for her. It's a huge amount of money. And, as part of that agreement, it's almost like, I wasn't told to take a back seat, but, obviously I'm not involved in the show. I don't have the greatest relationship in the world with MVP. So my role will just be to be there to support Katie. She's coming to the final chapters of her career, and this is a massive fight for her. And we've promoted her since her professional debut. We continue to promote her today. We will do to the end of her career, and we're very proud of her. And it's going to be a tough fight on Saturday on a big occasion.
Friday, by the way, it's Friday night.
Friday.
Don't show up. Yeah. By the way, one of my favorite things about that fight week and about that fight was the dynamic between you and Jake. The face-to-face that we did still lives on. It still gets clipped off till this day. But also you two sitting ringside and cheering, and it was just so fun. We don't often see that. I know you just alluded to the relationship. Is there any path to getting back to that place? You don't have to be the best of friends, but I understand there's still the lawsuit.
From my side, he's fighting on Friday, so obviously it's a bit different this time around.
Yeah.
But from my point of view, I have absolutely no animosity between, with Jake or Nikisa. We've always done good business together. We've had our issues, obviously, which will have to be resolved. But from a business perspective, moving forward, I never let that kind of thing get in the way of opportunities for our fighters. And this is a great example. It's easy for us to say, no, we're not doing anything with MVP and Jake Paul, and I'm not letting Katie fight on that. I'll give her another fight and I'll do this. No, that's the perfect fight. The package and the offer was fantastic. The biggest payday of her career so far. And she's had some huge ones, particularly the fight against Chantel Cameron, first time around. And even the Serrano first fight, although it wasn't at the same level, So this is right up there, and this is the right fight for her. So for me, I'm long in the tooth with that now. I've been around a long time. I've dealt with all kinds of different people, and I'm just relaxed to make sure that we do the right job for our fighters and we give them every opportunity to create legacy and lead the sport financially in the greatest shape possible.
You're not really going to leave before the main event, are you?
Yeah, I don't know.
You're going to be there. There's going to be 60,000 people. You're going to want to watch it.
A lot of people ask my opinion, and sometimes it gets me not into trouble, but obviously it can ruffle the feathers of the MVP guys. I'm not looking to go out and talk about Jake Paul against Mike Tyson. I just get asked about it in every interview, and I've always been straight with people. I've always been honest. I'm not going to brown those people. I'm not calling for this fight to be banned. All I'm saying is it's not my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up around boxing since I was 7 years old. Mike Tyson was probably my one of my greatest heroes in sport. I just don't want to see him in the ring again at 58. That's it. And listen, commercially, I get it all. It's going to do great numbers, right? People are going to make a lot of money. It's fine. I'm not. Again, you're not going to see me with a pickard or whatever it's called outside the arena saying, "Stop the fight! Stop the fight!" But it's just the world we live in today. And a long time ago, I made the decision. Probably cost me a lot of money to stay true to my passion for the sport and move away from that kind of thing. And it just doesn't sit right with me. Again, like I get it. I wish everybody the best of luck, but I'm allowed to say, oh, I don't really want to see it. I don't want to see Mike Tyson in that fight. But a lot of people will see it, and I'm sure it will do great business. And I wish everybody the best of luck.
Let's end on AJ if we can. If you could look into your crystal ball, when does he return and against who?
He will either fight Daniel Dubois or Tyson Fury. I mean, they're the only two fights I see. You know, he wanted to go ahead on February the 22nd and fight Daniel Dubois, and he just wouldn't have been 100%. You know, he's still got a couple of minor niggles from the fight. He can't start camp yet, and he needs to now. He's going to fight February 22nd. So you're going to see him around May or June time. And I think, you know, he's desperate to rematch Daniel Dubois. But obviously, Tyson Fury, win or lose on December 21st, it's going to be a fight that's going to be very difficult to remove yourself from. You know, those two have to meet before it's all over. And that could be next.
And so when you say Tyson Fury, I thought you were saying, oh, Fury's going to lose and then it'll be easier to match up, you know, a loss versus...
Win or lose.
Really?
I mean, listen, if he wins, absolutely fantastic. He could defend his unified world championship against Anthony Joshua. If he loses, it's the last dance for both. So either way, it's compelling. But I want Fury to win. I want Fury to be world heavyweight champion because that's what AJ wants, is to try and become a 3-time world heavyweight champion. That's why he wants to rematch Dubois, because there is a shot at the world title there. So if Fury can win and we can make the AJ fight, that would definitely be my preferred route. But we'll see what happens December 21st.
I know it's a lot of ifs, but London or Riyadh? Does it have to be in London if it's Fury?
Either. I mean, look, it breaks all records in the spotlight. It's just, I can't even tell you. 2 million pay-per-view buyers, obviously the sellout at Wembley. But obviously His Excellency's involved and will want to make sure that a fight like that could also land in Riyadh. Maybe even 2 fights. Who knows? And then they can dance off into the sunset and we can just go and, you know, sip a nice margarita on the beach and say, what a ride.
Love it. Love the chat, Eddie. Thank you so much. Appreciate the time. Safe travels out there. Perhaps I'll see you in Dallas. And congrats on a great show this past weekend.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, there he is, Eddie Hearn, joining us, the head man over at Matchroom. What a time for them, and what a time this weekend for one of their own. She's one of their own. Thanks for watching this video. Hey, before you go, do me a favor, hit that sub button, give us a thumbs up, hit the little bell thingy as well. Leave us a nice comment or two. We appreciate you all very much.